How are we going, guys? Welcome to part 3 of, what are we going to call it? 12-volt talk.
12-volt talk?
12-volt
it was
talk.
1,001 questions with Enerdrive, but from now it's 12-volt talk.
Right. And we have filmed them back to back, but Miriam has decided to change her outfit to
What do you
make it
think?
look like
I'll get down.
shameless plug. And here we go, ADU merch.
If you haven't got your ADU
Do you want a shirt
merch
like that,
yet-
Dave?
I got my own. See, I got Enerdrive.
Oh, and
This is Dave. Dave is the national sales manager for Enerdrive. Dave is very, very smart. You would know this if you've watched the previous 2 videos in this mini-series. If you haven't yet, watch them after this video.
Get
Start
stuck
question.
straight into it. So basically what happened, you guys asked us so many questions we couldn't squeeze it all into one. So
Yep.
we're breaking it down into bite-sized pieces and trying to keep them under 20 minutes.
yeah, thanks.
Perfect.
We
So,
really appreciate it.
We're
Triple our
actually
work now.
up to question number 15 or question number 1, depending on if you're watching in sequence or
Okay.
starting from scratch.
Okay.
Nathan Ryan on Facebook asks, what do they, I think they meaning you, Enerdrive, think the biggest lithium system will be in future years?
Ooh.
A few years ago it was 100 amp hour, then 200 amp hour, and now we're seeing vans with 900 amp hour. There are big changes going on as off-grid becomes more popular and our needs change with induction cooktops and gasless vans becoming a thing.
Can I start
Yeah.
first? Can I just remember, and we spoke about this before, everything that we're running off these systems are becoming way more efficient.
Yeah.
So it's just about like you don't need to go bigger anymore. Like you're going to get to a
I
point
want
where
to answer the question by saying it's not about having a bigger system. It's
Yeah.
about sizing it for your application.
Yeah.
And as technology improves in our appliances and they become more efficient, hopefully we don't need over 1,000 amps and 12 volts. But to answer your question, yeah, I think it will one day
Yeah.
become quite common to run. 900 amps might be mainstream, 600 amps might be mainstream, 900 amps up to 1,200 amps could be common.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I think it's always going to be dependent on our means to put the energy back. So the true
That's
answer
right.
to that question is the sky's the limit, depending on how efficient our charging methods are.
Yeah.
Now, shameless plug, we've just released our 100 amp Enerdrive Dometic charger.
Okay.
So it's an AC battery
insane.
charger, and
Yeah.
there's no point having 900 amps of lithium power if you're trying to feed it with one of our 60 amp battery chargers.
That's right.
You could combine 2, you could put 2 in parallel, now you can deliver 100 amps an hour from one charger,
Yeah.
or 200 amps an hour from 2 of those chargers. So it's about improving our means to replenish the power. Solar's no different.
Yeah.
When you're free camping, it's all about solar. We've said that in numerous times today with different pieces of this
Yeah.
series. And it is all about solar. So who knows? The real question is, how's solar going to improve? Because I assure you, if we get to the point that we can one day have twice as much power on the roof, we could therefore justify a lot more power inside in the battery.
We've
We're
spoken
only
about this.
yeah, we're only capped at a certain
Big fold-out
amount.
roof that goes and all the
Yeah,
solar panels
which
just
is
like
wild.
come out the side.
We've got to remember the roof on the Caravan is only so big, and if we want to go to a 30-foot Caravan, then you can justify, having all
Agreed.
this solar and putting 1,000 amps in.
You need
but
to be able to replenish the power.
you need to be able to replenish it. That is a crucial part. So what we
I
try
think it'll
saying
be
to
a
every-
long time, if ever.
Yeah.
It'll be a long time before 900 amps becomes mainstream.
Yes.
It's the 1%er for sure.
It is the
but
1%er,
there are people out there who run at 900 amps because they need it.
Yep.
So
And 900 amps works well when you've got terrible conditions too.
totally.
But for only so long. There's going to be a
need
point where you're in that much of a deficit that you're just going to have to stop, go for a huge drive, or plug a generator
Or
in
plug into mains.
to
It
replenish,
depends on how
or
you
plug
travel.
into mains.
That's
With a
right.
100 amp
Well, could
charger, it's insane,
Could you
isn't
top it
it?
up with a generator?
Yeah.
Turn your generator on, plug it in, just like you plug into mains.
And you only need you can only use a 1 kVA if you really want to. It's
right.
only firing up the charger, isn't it?
Oh, if you were running a 100 amp charger, you'd need bigger than 1 kVA.
Oh, you would do.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right. Good question.
Next
Anyway,
question.
yep.
Next question from Daniel Colby on Facebook. Any reason why the DC to DC charger will only select either solar or alternator and not both?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
so we've answered this question
Yep.
previously with some other questions. And so our DC to DC charger, the Enerdrive DC to DC, is designed that it, prioritises vehicle input. And then when the vehicle is off, it transitions over to solar. That's not an accident. We want it to work that way.
Yep.
Why? Because if I want solar to work at the same time as my vehicle, I don't want to limit the amount of power I can deliver. Meaning, my alternator can deliver 100% of the potential that my DC-DC can offer. So if it's set to 45 amps, I want that 45 amps. If I have the ability to deliver an extra 15 amps from solar, I don't want to absorb that into a 45 amp charger.
Yeah.
I want 45 amps from vehicle, and I want that extra 15 amps to be delivered as well. The only way to do that no matter what the DC-DC is, the only way to do that is via an additional solar controller. So that's why we do it.
Yep.
We're all about running lithium systems that can take significant current, so we want the best options available to deliver as much power as possible. For our systems, we don't see a need to take a little bit less energy from your alternator and then share that load with your solar.
Top it up with the solar.
Because you're still only going to get 40 or 45 amps an hour, depending on the rating on your DC-DC. I want all of that 45 amps and all of the power available from solar at the same time.
Separate solar controller.
Absolutely.
Make it 10 times better for you anyway. So
Good.
Yep.
Okay, moving on. Jason Allen on Facebook. Is there anything in the future for another solar blanket 200 watt plus? ADU content is awesome.
Well, thank you for that part. The second part.
Not at this stage.
Yeah.
Not at this stage.
Okay.
Nothing in the pipeline at all, to be fair.
Okay.
So,
Done.
no.
Here we go. Easy.
From Matthew BA on Facebook. What size cable should I be running from main battery under bonnet to canopy for DC to DC charger? Should that also be fused?
100% it should be fused.
Yep.
Big disclaimer, there is no such thing as a wire that should not have circuit protection added to it as close to the battery as possible. I don't care what it's for.
Yep.
So it's there to protect against fire. So
Yep.
the simple answer is yes, it should be fused in accordance with our user manual. Off the top of my head, I want to say that's a 70 amp fuse on the input side, but please check that, obviously,
Yep.
against the user manual for the product, presuming we're talking about the Enerdrive DC-DC here.
Yep.
In terms of the cable size, the thing about our DC-DCs is they will restrict the output depending on the voltage input, meaning if you underspec the cable, your DC to DC will work, but you will not get as much power as you wish. So you've purchased a 40 plus, you can dial it up to 50 amps. From a 12 volt alternator, you'll typically get greater than 45 amps per hour out of that DC-DC.
Yep.
But if you do that with a 6mm wire, you might be lucky to get 15 amps per hour.
Yeah, okay.
If you do it with a 16mm wire, you'll exceed 40 amps per hour. If you do it with a 25mm wire, you might exceed 46 amps per hour.
Yeah.
So the bigger the wire, the better. Our user manual would define, I think by memory, a 16mm wire over that distance.
Okay.
But the answer to that question, because our user manual is quite comprehensive, have a look at it. It actually breaks it down based on meters.
Okay.
So however long the run is, it'll tell you what size or gauge cable to run for that application.
So is it dangerous running a smaller wire as opposed to more heat, or the
Just the
DC
efficient.
just
it's
won't
not
do
dangerous because the
Okay.
DC-DC will literally limit itself.
it? There you go.
So it'll
So intelligent, isn't it?
It's smart.
It's amazing.
It's
Yeah.
all based on input voltage. There's a threshold that it
Yep.
needs to stay at.
Okay.
So it'll limit the output to ensure the loss is not too great.
There you go.
Yep.
Amazing, isn't it?
Cabling.
Yep,
Who'd have
cabling.
thought? Brandon Gomez on Facebook. Anything in the works for a 200 amp hour Slimline lithium battery, or are you just sticking with the battery range you have now?
Okay, I'm in Cairns, and our product team, hi Kane, are in Brisbane.
G'day, Kane.
And all I'm going to do is give you a wink and say, watch this space, and move on.
Oi, there you go. Okay. Roger Wicks asks, I have added a Victron solar controller on my river cruiser because the Enerdrive system chooses between the alternator or the solar, meaning during the day when travelling, I'm missing out the free energy.
Same as
When
before.
will you bring out a charger that does both?
Okay, I answered that in the previous
Yeah.
question in this episode. Effectively, we won't, for all those reasons that I identified. And you did the right thing by buying an additional solar controller. Mine, he wishes it was an Enerdrive one, of course.
Yeah.
But in saying that, it's not wrong.
Yeah.
And as I said in that previous answer, this is why we did it,
Yeah.
because we don't want to limit your output.
Yeah.
So in this case, you can have alternator support 100% of the potential for the DC-DC, and then get 100% of the potential available from solar via an additional solar controller. So Enerdrive have a new range of Enerdrive solar controllers, but we've always had a range of solar controllers. So you want to look them up. That's the Enerdrive solar controller range, available up to 40 amps in an MPPT variant. And but we're also distributors of Morningstar as well.
Yep.
So we've got a heap to offer.
And that's on the website.
On the website.
Same
yep.
system that we have in here. So
Yeah, you've got
if
some
we
of
didn't
them
have
there.
separate solar controllers, we would just be using the DC-DC charger, 50 amps while we're driving. But having the separate solar controllers in here, we can get the full advantage of the
This is
sun.
a great example. If
Yeah.
this only had the DC-DC,
Yeah.
when you plug in your Anderson plug and you're running your vehicle, the solar on the roof would be rendered useless.
It's doing
so
nothing.
when you're in
Yeah.
transit, though, you would have got 45 amps an hour
Yeah.
from your truck through the DC-DC to feed the batteries.
Yeah.
But because we ran the separate solar controllers, we've got 45 amps an hour still from the vehicle through the DC-DC, plus how many solar panels?
8.
8.
100
watts.
amps, ideal.
Yeah, so 8 at 180 watts
Yeah.
each still feeding the battery additional to the DC-DC. So you're recovering your batteries in less time in a road trip.
So nearly 150 amps an hour pulling into the batteries, which is just
that's why we do it.
Sensational. It's amazing. So,
Good.
Done? Yep.
Jay Jukes on Facebook asks, what's the main difference between the E-Lite and B-TEC range batteries?
Great question.
Yeah.
E-Lite was brought out as a, I guess you could say, price-conscious variant. It's available at 100 amps only, so it's your traditional Group 27 case or a normal four-wheel drive battery type size. And a couple of differences. Firstly, it does not have the Bluetooth app available, so you can't jump on your phone and check out your state of charge and how much power you're using. It's not an option on the E-Lite range. Whereas the B-TEC, Bluetooth technology, B-TEC, it has that app available. The other big difference, of course, is the 100 amp E-Lite is a sealed lid, so it's not serviceable. Whereas with the B-TEC range, if something does go wrong, or if you make a mistake, or there's a repair and someone welds on the chassis and causes damage because they haven't disconnected the batteries or whatever, it's serviceable. It's not expensive. We can undo the screws on top and access the BMS, and if we have to, we can repair or replace it. So it's a much better product in terms of serviceability.
All right. So price conscious.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Graham Chadwick on Facebook asks, I have a brand new Caravan. Okay, this is another long one. Like that long. I have a brand new Caravan that I've not been able to use as yet, and we have a 200 amp B-TEC Lithium battery, which I noticed the other day had dropped to 36% charge for some reason. I have since charged the battery using a 2.2 kV generator, and after 3 hours only had 75% charge. Would a larger capacity generator charge the battery quicker? The Caravan is currently in storage with solar panels covered over and no access to 240. I have since learnt that I need to isolate everything from the battery so there's no discharge. There are suggestions should have a trickle charge from a separate solar panel, but others say no, you cannot trickle charge. Any info would be helpful.
Okay,
good question.
Firstly, there's no reason why you can't trickle charge. Meaning, if you had a separate solar panel mounted loose that was just connected permanently, feeding those batteries, keeping them topped up, it's totally okay. You're not going to hurt the batteries in any way. So long as that panel has an appropriate controller for the batteries, it'll work. Secondly, increasing the size of the generator will not fix this issue. You want to increase the size of the battery charger, meaning over a 3 hour stint it was stated that the battery it only went to 75%. It wasn't filled completely to full. The generator doesn't dictate that, the battery charger does.
Is that because it was a 40 amp charger, I'm guessing, in there?
Presuming so, and whatever loads were turned on at the same time. So my answer would be, you may need a bigger generator to run a bigger charger. I don't know, it depends on what you have. But from everything that I have heard there, if it was my build and if I was in that situation, I would always ensure that my batteries are full when I park it. Yes, I would isolate all the loads. So there's probably a master switch in there somewhere. Presuming that's the case, switch it. And I would, if I don't have access to mains, I would personally fit an additional solar panel, presuming it's under a shed or somewhere. I would fit that panel and have that permanently connected to keep my battery full.
So if we flick all the breakers, is there still power getting drawn somehow in there with the BMS always being on?
Your BMS will consume a little bit of power, but it's so minute it's not funny. But to give you an idea in terms of a storage application, if you fully charged your battery, isolated all of the loads and had no charger connected, as long as you came back every few months and topped your battery up,
just to see where it's at,
it would be fine. So
there
I wouldn't personally leave it more than a few months, but that's just because you want to open your van, you want to let it air out.
That's right.
So in that time, if you just went and started the generator for a couple hours every few months, that would also work.
Cool.
But you only do that if you can genuinely isolate all the circuits.
That's right.
So it depends on the build.
Okay. Louise Dove on Facebook. Enerdrive install their systems into caravans being built. Any plans to team up with motorhome companies to do the same? We have a motorhome on order with a Vita RV and asked if we could have your system installed during the build, but got this reply. We don't allow any third-party installations during the manufacturing stage, and please keep in mind third-party installments may void your warranty. So we now have to install after the build.
Okay. We already provide systems to lots of motorhome manufacturers at an OEM level, so that goes without saying. But we don't supply everybody. If a manufacturer is telling you that to retrofit it after the fact you will void your warranty, I'd urge you to do your homework. Naturally, the warranty on the system you're pulling out, obviously that's been void. But your warranty cannot, legally will not be void on the rest of the entire build just because you put a different power system in there.
Sound right, does it?
I've just recently purchased a new Land Cruiser, as you know, and if I want to go and put an automatic transmission in that 79 series, naturally I don't get warranty on the old manual transmission. It goes without saying. But it has nothing to do with the warranty on the engine.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So
there we go.
Makes sense.
Here we go.
Do your homework. Roger Wicks on Facebook. I have two 200 amp hour batteries. The shunt readout gives an accurate percentage readout, but not the actual amp hour available. Oh, the reflection is bad. I.e., it is half. Can I reset it to a correct number?
yeah, it just sounds like. Did they mention?
Is it a
multiple
Simarine?
shunts?
It just.
Multiple shunts.
I have two 200 amp hour batteries. The shunt readout gives an accurate percentage readout, but not the actual amp hour available, i.e. it is half. Can I reset it?
It sounds like a Simarine monitoring system. There's lots of variables in there in the programming. Give our tech support team a call. Talk to us about which monitoring system we're referring to. But yeah, there's no excuse for it not reading correctly. So there's naturally something that's not programmed correctly.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay, I think we might get through the rest of the questions.
Wow.
In this,
3 parts.
In this
Here we
yeah,
go.
3 parts.
Quick.
Let's go. Ian Bessel Brown on Facebook. Is it possible to get one of the eSYSTEMs without one of the items? In my case, I have no need for an AC charger.
Generally speaking, no, because our production team, said everything's pre-populated and it's quite a process.
Right.
So to try and create those changes can cause headaches. But what I would say is if you're buying it from a dealer who sells chargers and what have you, have a talk to them. And the reason for that is we have seen lots of examples where resellers of our products are more than happy to remove a product off a board knowing that they have a job for that component
There you
anyway.
go. Okay.
So at an Enerdrive level, we sell the complete system. But what you negotiate with a reseller, with one of our customers, is entirely up to you.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool.
So maybe. Manfred Jurischek. I really need to learn how to pronounce your name because it pops up a lot on Facebook. What is the average life of your B-TEC batteries with regular use, and do you trade in / recycle your dead batteries?
Good
Thanks.
question.
Okay. We don't do trade-ins, no. But in terms of life expectancy, it's a hard one to say. And to explain that, it's because we haven't found it yet. And that's the truth of it, right?
Okay.
So 2016 we started with the B-TEC batteries, but prior to that, many years earlier, we introduced lithium in general with Pro Series, and it's only just recently that we've started seeing some of those Pro Series batteries come back.
Yeah, wow.
And when I say come back, that's simply happy customers ringing saying we're clearly end of life. You know, we want to replace these batteries, and you know, some of these guys are full-time users. You know, 9-10 years strong in those builds.
Well, you buy Pro Series for a reason, don't you?
Exactly.
To use it day in, day out.
And B-TEC's pretty well taken over the whole Pro Series drive now because all of that strength and success that we got out of Pro Series, because we were the first in the country to do it, and from an RV perspective. And everything we've learnt has been adapted and applied to the B-TEC solution. And, you know, since early 2016, we introduced the B-TEC range, and we haven't started seeing end-of-life batteries come through yet.
That's crazy.
So that gives you an idea. Now, that includes people like yourselves who are full-time users and really flogging
We're
the battery.
flogging this BMS.
Like
We're pushing
it's
it to
running
its
induction
limits.
cooktops and microwaves and all that stuff on a daily basis, air fryers, you name it. And, you know, customers in that situation are still using their first purchase.
Well, you just go on the app and you can see the life of the battery anyway.
Oh, that's
always
pretty
saying
cool,
100%. 100%.
It's worth noting that you can actually you can kind of hold us accountable in a way, because on the app for the B-TEC batteries.
And which app is this?
This
This
is the
actual
Enerdrive app
Enerdrive
for
app,
B-TEC.
so you can log into your battery.
And on one of the screens, it actually identifies how many amps the battery is good for, so the genuine capacity of the battery. So when you first buy a 200 amp battery, it might show 203 amps. But a year later, it might show 199 amps. 5 years later, it might show 190 amps. Depends on how hard you've used it. Now, I've seen batteries that are 4 years old and still showing over 200 amps.
Yeah, wow.
Okay, but that might be an application where it runs a fridge and a few lights.
So it's just not working.
But
the
then
BMS
I've
is
seen,
just,
not working hard, but then I've seen on the cells, but then I've seen other times where that same 200 amp battery daily is running an induction cooktop, and 2 years in, it's good for 199.5 amps. And you think, well, that's totally acceptable.
Testament to you
battery
guys, isn't
has
it?
been absolutely abused.
Yep.
And so that's a pretty cool feature on the product.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Here we go.
Did we answer all that? Do we trade in recycle?
Yeah. No,
Oh, yes.
We
Don't
did?
do that,
Yeah.
yes.
Yep. Okay.
Recycle, yes, obviously, in the sense that anything that we have at our end through our R&D and what have you is disposed of correctly.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Dave Tester on Facebook. For the 200 amp hour B-TEC battery, what's the ideal charge rate, i.e. absorption and float?
For the 200 amp B-TEC.
200 amp B-TEC.
200 amp hour
Okay.
B-TEC.
So ideally, what we like to see it set to is 14.2 to 14.35. Sorry, 14.2 to 14.3 for charging, and 13.5 for float. We have a variance listed on our batteries, so we don't just say 14.2. We'll say 14.1 to 14.5. Why don't we go to the upper threshold? Well, because you don't need to. You know, often we get inquiries stating that our battery monitor, that app that we were referring to, only ever gets to 99%. Yeah, you can dial 14.2 up to 14.5 and you'll get it to 100%.
100%.
But
There you
I don't see the point in pressure cooking a battery to demonstrate the last 1% just to make you feel good.
go. No, it's not worth it.
You know
is
what I
it?
mean?
No.
I'd rather take all the stress off the battery, because most of the damage you do to a battery in the charging process is that final stage.
Yep. Okay.
So I'd rather take all the stress off, dial that voltage back a bit, accept that in the app you're only going to see 99%, and know that I'm increasing the life expectancy of my battery.
There you go.
So 14.2 and 13.5 for float is
Okay.
ideal.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay, we've only got a few to go and then we're done. So Matthew BA on Facebook. Can I run 2 DC to DC chargers from the main bonnet battery to charge canopy and also in camper?
Yes, and that's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
So it's common to run 2 separate feeds from your starting battery, effectively one feeding the DC-DC for the battery in the vehicle, and the other one going down to the Anderson plug, feeding the DC-DC in the van. That is the correct way to do it.
If you're running just one battery, you've got twin DCs, so obviously you're putting 100 amps in.
Yes, you can also parallel DC-DCs for one battery bank.
But is it a good idea to maybe isolate the two in case one decides to not
No.
play, or it doesn't really matter?
No, because even if one wasn't working, the other one's common to the battery. It would
Yeah,
still
right,
work.
okay. All right.
Yep.
Done.
Okay, so yes. David Galley on Facebook. Okay, big question. A lot seem to want to know, including myself. I think this is our final question, actually.
Okay.
Enerdrive DC to DC charger in the van. What cable, fuse, relay, and configuration needs to be run from start battery to Anderson plug?
We're
Oh, here
talking
we go.
Caravan. Let's assume we're talking
Yes.
Caravan,
Yes.
right?
In van.
Okay, in terms of cable, it is totally okay to run like a 16mm loom or a 6P&S feed, which is technically 13.5mm, give or take a decimal. You know, that's acceptable. Will you get 45 to 50 amps an hour out of the DC-DC? No, you will not. If you want to get that kind of current, you would run a bigger cable, 25 to 35mm cable. Now, it's a tough question because it depends on the distance, you see.
Yeah.
But the industry, like Caravan manufacturers, they'll typically run around about 10 to 16mm cable, ideally, and that's not wrong. That's not wrong to do that. But if your vehicle also has 10 to 16mm wire, naturally you're not going to get as much power out of the DC-DC as what you could have.
Yeah, okay.
So it depends on your cable loss,
Okay.
on your cable size. Now, yes, you would run Anderson plugs. Up to 16mm cable, you can run up to you run a 50 amp Anderson plug. Naturally, if you run bigger cable, you need a bigger Anderson plug. So they
Yep.
do 120s,
They got the bigger, the
175s.
physically bigger, aren't
Chunkier
they?
product.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Circuit protection, absolutely do not use auto reset circuit breakers.
Okay.
Just cardinal sin, don't do it. Putting it simply, why? Because if there's a dead short, they're a thermal breaker.
Yeah.
So when there's a dead short, they get hot and they isolate. And then what happens? It cools down,
back
it
down,
turns
starts
on,
again.
and then it's off, and then it's on, and then it's
Yeah.
off, and then it's on. And eventually you generate enough heat where the short is that you cause a fire. So do not
On a
use...
winter's night, it's probably good, maybe a good
Well,
thing then.
give you
if you like a nice electrical fire,
one
then
warm night.
yeah,
before.
one more night.
So, definitely manual reset breakers,
Yep.
not a problem. They're convenient because you don't have to carry spare parts.
Yep.
My personal favourite is good quality fuse connections that require tools, effectively. A bolt-on connection, so MIDI, M-I-D-I, MIDI
Okay.
fuse holders, for me, are the way to go. You put the fuse in situ and you bolt it on. You'll commonly see it as standard equipment for a large range of European cars.
So to
nowadays.
physically reset, you've got to get your tools
You've got to
out.
get your 8mm socket out and
Yep.
you crack open the 2 nuts and physically replace the fuse.
Okay.
Tight, sturdy connections are the way to go.
There you go.
And good quality, well done lugs. Not cheap insulated connections with a poor attempt of a solder join.
Yep.
I'd rather a good quality lug with a really good quality crimp.
I mean, if you're going to stint on stuff like that, it's just not going to be efficient enough, is it?
Spot on.
To its potential anyway. So,
Yes,
yeah.
spot on. Did
Yeah.
we answer that question?
I think you did.
I think we did,
Yeah,
yeah.
you did.
Yeah.
Well, we've answered a lot of questions.
We
It's
have
been
answered
good.
a lot
it's
of
been
questions,
great.
and what
Yeah.
I think we might do, just to wrap things up, is ask Dave if he'd like to summarise what Enerdrive is, what's it for, who's it for, and that'll be it.
Okay, well, Enerdrive is really a mobile power solutions business first and foremost. That's our strength. We started out just specialising in chargers and monitors and converting power, so inverters,
Yeah.
you know, DC to AC. But we've grown so much more since those days. For many, many years now, in fact, we were the first to bring out a really specific, built-for-purpose lithium solution in Pro Series. Of course, that's progressed and progressed and progressed to the point that we've been able to implement all the successes from that into our B-TEC Lithium batteries, which has been a wonderful story.
Awesome.
You know, and that's going exceptionally well. And we've really solidified ourselves as industry leaders in this mobile power business that we're all so into nowadays. The industry is exciting. Everyone wants a Caravan. Everyone wants a four-wheel drive. It's no longer acceptable just to, you know, have an Esky full of ice.
No.
Who wants
Those
to
days
do
are
that?
done, yeah.
It just sounds like hard work.
Yeah.
You know, and Enerdrive's really proud to be a part of that journey. You know, we're running refrigeration, and we're providing power solutions to do that, obviously, via solar, via vehicle. We're monitoring batteries. We're converting power to run air fryers and God knows what other crazy loads.
Hair dryers and straighteners
Hair
this morning.
dryers, exactly. and that's who we are.
Yep.
Our success has always been built on our service and what we provide to all customers, not just our direct customers, business to business, but also you guys, people who use Caravans, who use our power systems in four-wheel drives. That's our strength, and that's probably what keeps me in Enerdrive. I'm really proud of that part of Enerdrive. We're well connected with our customers all the way to end user level. There's
100%.
nothing greater than, you know, every day nowadays on social media we receive all this positive feedback, and it's mostly centric around how we support our customers, and that's our strength.
The progression has been huge, and we are so proud to be part of it as well.
Absolutely.
We love
Awesome.
being a part of the journey, and we love
Yep.
partnering with guys like yourselves. You know, like what you guys are doing is phenomenal.
Yep.
You're living full time in a Caravan, and you're not even unique anymore.
Yep.
This is normal.
It's a common thing now, isn't
This
it?
is
Very
normal.
much so. Yep.
And for us, obviously, it's all about keeping you guys on the road.
Yep.
You know, and that's what our business is all about. We provide energy solutions so that you don't have to compromise, and that's our strength.
No, you guys have definitely contributed to a happy wife, mate. So.
Happy wife, happy life.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you
It's been
very much.
awesome.
All
Thanks
the
for the questions, and we'll see you again soon.
Cheers, guys.
Adios.